Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Paul. It's good to be here with you once again at OC Talk Radio. And, Paul, I've got a special guest today, and it happens to be with someone with whom I have much in common, although we've never met. She is, I love this title, she is an intentional living expert, Diane Forster. I really resonate with that title, and Diane has much to contribute to living intentionally. And she wrote, found these facts that are just startling to me. Did you know that 70% of people in the United States are unhappy? And that depression and anxiety are at an all-time high, that suicides are up 30% since the year 2000, and a staggering 50% for women. It's usually had been male in the past, now it's women. And kids as young as 10 are falling prey to suicide. I'm not surprised that kids, so much pressure is put on kids nowadays that preschool is oriented toward what college are you going to get into, and it's just crazy for them. But this was Diane's story. She writes that her own suicide attempt, after her own suicide attempt, she completely reinvented her life and is now helping so many others live with intention, with passion, and with purpose. And they are living their lives as they've always dreamed of. There has never been a better time than today to change, reinvent, and help you live this way. Before we continue and get into our conversation with Diane Forster, I want to give you just a bit of information about her so you know her expertise. Diane is a TEDx speaker, an award-winning inventor, best-selling author, TV host, podcaster, international living expert, and reinventing specialist. She works with clients privately to help clear away mindset blocks and limiting beliefs that prevent you from reaching your full potential in business, life, and relationships. Diane is CEO and founder of I Have Today, a best-selling author, and has written 4 books. Her TV show and podcast, I Have Today, with Diane Forster, and all her other products and programs help people gain confidence and live enriched, empowered, inspired lives through their transitions of reinventing themselves. And today, Diane and I are going to speak about reinventing your life and living intentionally, but I'm sure we're going to cover a lot more. Diane Forster, welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. I am so happy to be here. It's just an honor and a privilege. I know we're going to have a great show today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, right? Because I think really this is half about me. I'm just I want to find out how to reinvent my life. So that's always the fun thing about this show, as we say in the beginning, is that I'm learning things about me, and I hope that other people learn things about themselves in the process. But that's what makes me so intrigued with interviews, is that I relate so much. I mentioned we chatted briefly on the phone before the show, and I mentioned, 25 years ago, I wrote a book that was titled Getting the Right Things Right, and subtitled Personal Strategies for Reinventing the Life You Want. So a quarter of a century ago, I wrote that book, but I believe it was probably a bit ahead of its time. It didn't do as well as a couple of my other books, but I believe it was a decent shot at it. So we're on the same page.
Well, it seems like whether you realized it or not, you were on this path and you had this destiny to do work around this. And just by the mere fact that your show is called The Next Chapter. That is all about, every chapter is really a reinvention in some way. So there's so much symmetry between what you're doing and what I'm doing. And so collectively, we're creating awareness about this, that it's okay to do that you don't have to settle for the status quo, and that you are the one who's in the power. And it's how we transition through those chapters and reinventions that really defines our level of fulfillment. And it's by you having this platform and me having my platform that offers people the opportunity to really learn things. So I'm not surprised that you're learning so much as the host of this show, because as the host of my own show, I experience the same thing. I get so much value from it in a great way, in a selfish way. Even though we're giving so much, we're getting so much too, which is amazing. So. And
we are, I like your use of the word power. We are going to talk about power, and we do have personal power. I at my age, at 70, I still have a personal life coach, and we are right now going through a process of the 6 principles of power, and they are not power over, but power to. And there's a big difference between power over and power to. In your bio, before we really get into the meat, you mentioned that you were an award-winning inventor. I've never had an inventor on the show. You're my first. So tell me, what did you invent?
Well, the product is called the Spifter. So think spoon spifter. And it's a kitchen tool. And it's a decorating sifting spoon that you use to decorate your foods and beverages with your sugars and spices. And I came up with it because at the time I was cooking and baking a lot, and I love to entertain, and I was making deviled eggs for a holiday, and I think food should look as good as it tastes, and I was decorating the eggs and had them all on the tray, and the last thing it needed was that finishing touch of paprika on them. And I was in a hurry to go out the door, and I went to shake the spice on the dish, and too much came out and shot out on the dish and ruined the dish in 1 second.
Oh, my goodness.
And in my mind, I could see this product flash in my mind, and I thought, if there was just a sifting spoon with a little teeny sifting bowl, maybe a teaspoon size, with a long handle and a tapping edge where you could just put it in the spice container, scoop it out, and then just tap as much spice as you want on the food. Wouldn't that be so cool? Everything would be clean, neat, and perfect. No germs or mess on your hands. And, that's when the idea came to me. And so at the time, I was one of those women that I would go into Crate and Barrel or any of those stores, Bed Bath & Beyond, and stand at the gadget wall and say, now what's here that I can't live without, that I didn't know I couldn't live without until I got here.
Yeah, I get it. I used to be a cook, so.
Yeah, every gadget under the sun. And I looked high and low for this everywhere and couldn't find it. And I was driving, and a voice, whispered in my ear and said, Diane, you need to create this. So I went out to dinner with some friends a couple weeks later, and I said, you know what, I came up with this idea for a kitchen product. Do you know anyone in that industry? And they did. They introduced me to him, and he became my mentor and coach. And he really tried to talk me out of it. And he said, this is not an easy undertaking. Are you sure you want to do this? You see me, you got a career, you got kids, you got a busy life. And I said, my mantra was, I just want to see where this goes. And so one thing led to another. I filed a patent, found a prototype manufacturer, and the next thing you know, I had this prototype of this sifting spoon, and it has 3 interchangeable sifting bowls that vary in sieve size. So I discovered it was really versatile to use for all kinds of things, not just paprika on deviled eggs. It was good for baking and appetizers and coffee drinks, and all this fun stuff was happening.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can just see it. I can't believe that one didn't exist.
It didn't, right. So I ended up going to the International Houseware Show in Chicago, and I was in the local inventors corner, and I ended up winning an innovation award in the
Did you really?
category. I did. So there were there were 30,000 new products featured at the show that year, and 65 were honored, and the Spifter was one of them. So, and then QVC was there. So they came over to me and they said, we want to start selling your product on our website.
Oh,
so
my
they started
goodness.
placing orders with me, and it was selling well, and they called me and said, it's selling well, we'd like to have you on air. So I got featured on QVC on air, and we sold out in 6 minutes. And so having the mantra, I just want to see where this goes, led me down this extraordinary journey. And I talk about this all the time, and when I'm out speaking and I'm working with people, your ideas, don't discount them. We all have them, and 95% of ideas never get made. They don't. People they let them go. They get buried in cemeteries or in notebooks or not talked about. Imagine if I didn't bring that up at that dinner table that night at the restaurant. And I learned that 25% of the searches on Google every day are brand new search terms, which means there are millions of problems out there that are seeking solutions that we all have the answers to. So I always encourage, this is what I do a lot in my work, is really pull out, what are those ideas? What is your dream? What is your vision? You know, because we're so unique and different that we all have solutions to people's problems, and we need to be exploring them and just see where they go.
You know, I think that's a wonderful sort of goal. Is let's just see where this goes. I've written a bit lately on expectations and how expectations, if you set your expectations too high, no matter what you're doing, whether it's in business or in personal life or in vacation. I was just talking about a vacation and setting expectations too high, and you can actually ruin it by setting these expectations too high rather than just, let's just see where this goes. My favorite vacations, when I go with my wife or if I go by myself, I'll go say I went to Amsterdam and I got a map and I got an Airbnb and I just kind of pointed and said, I'm going this direction, and I threw on my backpack and started walking, and just to see what comes up. You know, I have no expectations, no idea of seeing anything, just visiting a foreign country and checking it out and seeing what happens as I go along. And wonderful things happen. I come into museums and, you know, who knows what all. But it was that attitude of let's just see what comes up. So that's great. So you're not only are you an award-winning, but you're a best-selling, because I mean that product it's got to be doing well. It's a tremendous product.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it's been fun, and we've got some things cooking with it. No pun intended. But it's kind of been pushed off to the side a little bit because my attention has really been on the massive growth that I have today. So it's still there, and we're working. I've got a couple things going on. So exciting news coming up with that, and some other products that I want to create as well.
You are a determined, goal-oriented woman. I can see that.
Thank you.
Let's get into some of the meat of our time, and let's discuss a difficult experience that you had, and it has to do with, you said you had a suicide attempt, and I'm very interested in what you learned and how you came to manage this difficult situation. What brought it on? How did you incorporate it into your life, the lessons learned that you discovered? So can you talk about that for a bit?
Sure. Well, I was in a marriage and a relationship for 24 years to a man who was, you know, we loved each other, but we were not in love with each other. And it was a struggle early on in the relationship. And we had hit a lot of peaks and valleys, and we're in and out of counseling, and some other things transpired in my life. And I was living in Chicago at the time. That's where we were married, and I raised my twins. And different things happened. My mom got sick with cancer and passed away. I had infertility issues, and all of these things were going on at the same time. And then ultimately did get pregnant, had the twins, and life became all about the kids. And the relationship in my marriage just suffered more and more, but it got pushed way back to the back burner because life was filled with so many other things. And what was happening to me was a slow and steady, basically death. That's how I felt. I was getting more and more depressed, more and more lonely, more and more unfulfilled, and my life became very, very robotic, on autopilot. And it was this sort of numb mediocrity is what I call it. And I know there are so many women out there, or people in general, who do that. It's like, oh, well, I'll deal with that later, or when the kids go off to college, or, and they just push it off to the side. But what was happening to me is I was literally waking up exhausted every day, going to work at ABC, and then coming home and taking care of the kids. No passion or connection in our relationship. We were much more like roommates. And I was drinking a lot. I was eating a lot. I was online shopping a lot. I was really trying to fill this void in other ways. And it was in June of 2011. It was a regular Saturday. We were busy running around with the kids to and from, sporting events and practices and errands. And we went to some friends for a barbecue that night, and there were a bunch of families there. And it was actually a great time. The kids were all running around. And when we got in the car to go home, the fighting started. And when I got home, I just snapped. And I went up and I locked myself in the bathroom, and I had 2 full bottles of prescription pain medication that was sitting in there from a surgery I had the year before to get part of my colon removed because the stress of my life was literally killing me. And my mom died of colon cancer, and I was heading down that path. And I just said, I can't take this pain and loneliness anymore. And I had the pills in my hand, and this force karate chopped my arm. The pills went flying all over the floor, and the voice that told me to make the spifter screamed in my ear and said, you are not ending your life this way. You need to go get help so that you can tell your story and you can help others. And I was hysterically crying, and I just threw up my hands and said, well, you need to show me the way because I don't know how and I don't know what to do. And so I cleaned up that mess, wiped my tears, kissed my kids goodnight, and the next day I left a message for a therapist, and I said, I need help. I'm changing my life. And so I started this journey and this path to try and make the changes in my life. And several other things happened. There was betrayal on his part. A lot of things happened. But by January of 2012, I was out of that relationship. And then I had a brief pity party. Why me? Why this? Why now? And was really feeling sorry for myself. And I had already started personal development and self-help, and I started a meditation practice several months before. And in February, I sat down on the couch, and instead of doing my regular meditation, I started chanting, I forgive you. And I did it for 20 straight minutes, just, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And I had this overwhelming cathartic experience happening to me. I was forgiving myself. I was forgiving him. I was forgiving anything and everything in my life. And tears were streaming down my face. And when I finished, I stood up and I dried my tears, and I said, that's it. I did this. I'm the one in control. I'm the one responsible for the condition of my life. I was the enabler. I didn't set healthy boundaries. I allowed this. I was the one who put my needs behind. And I really took ownership of my life, which is the key I want to point out here. And then I declared, well, I want an extraordinary life, and I'm going to do everything I can to get it. And that started immersing me even deeper into developing self-love, self-acceptance, self-awakening. And I started, oh my gosh, my intuitive gifts and channeling and healing was going on like crazy. And I was writing like crazy and, stories and poetry. And I woke up in August of 2013, so 2 years after the bathroom incident, and I had this poem in my head, and it was called I Have Today. And it was, I have today to love and be loved. I have today to start fresh and new. I have today to see things with new eyes. I have today to nurture my spirit, mind, and body. And it just went on and on like that. And when I finished writing it, I looked down in it and I said, oh my God, this is way more than a poem. This is a movement. I'm supposed to help women who don't know their self-worth discover their true divinity, power, and purpose. Because if I was living in that quiet hell, how many other millions of women are living like this too? And I don't mean to discount men. I help men too, but I was drawn to women because I, in fact, am a woman, and that was my experience. And so that was the day that the idea for I Have Today was born. And I really didn't know what it was, but more and more things just kept coming to me. So fast forward 2 more years, in 2015, my twins graduated high school, and I made a bold decision. I decided to quit my corporate job at ABC with no net. I sold my house. I sold everything in it. I got my twins off to college, and I moved from Chicago to San Diego because it was just calling me. It was just one of those things. And I totally took a leap of faith, and I stepped over that line, and my mantra was, I just want to see where this goes. And so I just had I think it's 4 years now. I spent the first year really just grounding myself, studying, immersing myself in relationships and networking and writing my book. And my book came out a year later, and I launched the company and got certified as a coach. I did all this training. I had amazing coaches along the way, still do, always will. And it just had the gifts just keep coming, and the expansion just keeps happening. So the book became a bestseller. I'm out speaking. I've got the TV show and the podcast. I'm coaching people privately. I've got online programs, and I did the TEDx talk, and these manifestations just keep dropping in my lap. And it's like God, the universe, whatever you believe in,
right,
was waiting for me. I guess I needed to hit that bottom, because you don't know how high you can rise. Honestly, I believe this, until you see how low you can go. And what drove me was a sense of determination. I just said, I want an extraordinary life, and I declared it. And so that's been my vision and my focal point, to have that. And so whatever and however that was going to show up, no expectations, just being open. It's been an amazing, amazing journey. And so what I know for myself is I had so many amazing teachers along the way. I learned so many things, but I wanted to hack things because I'm into leverage and hacking.
Right.
So I took the best of the best from everything and developed my own processes and my own modalities, and Love It, Make It, Bring It, which I write about in the book, came from that. But when you learn, you want to teach, because what worked for me could help others. And so I have a very much outward-facing and forward-facing focus that, gosh, I know my journey. You read the statistics. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
Oh, yes.
So something has to be done about it.
Yeah, and I really like one of the processes that you used, and that was to verbally acknowledge what your goals are, what your process, maybe not your goals, but your process is going to be, and that you verbally acknowledge that to yourself. I believe there's something, like you said, with God or the universe, that once you acknowledge that, I want to do this, and this is where I want to head, it begins to become a reality. And even without you even trying necessarily to make it a reality, things start popping up. And if you're paying attention, then opportunities will come your way. I want to start talking about living intentionally, but what we need to do, Diane, is we need to take a brief break, and then we're going to move right on to living intentionally.
Okay, great.
Hi, this is Charlie Hedges, and you're listening to The Next Chapter with Charlie and my special guest, Diane Forster, who is an intentional living expert. And we're now going to talk about living intentionally, and it's a very important concept to me, that intentional living implies that you're making conscious choices about your own life, and that you do life, you don't allow life to do you. And I like the way that Diane has put this on her website, which you'll find at dianeforster.com. And it's the correlation between personal power and intentionality. And Diane, I want to read this. It's the opening of your podcast, not your podcast, of your website. But I liked it so much, I thought it would be good for our listeners to hear. And you write, intentional living means you stop allowing outside conditions, people, or circumstances to determine your happiness. You decide, you choose, you are the one with the power. All you have to do, or all you have, is today, and you need to make it what you want. That's a very. Everybody knows on the website, on the podcast, that I'm part of a 12-step program, and we're very much into today. That you have one day at a time, and this day is important. You don't talk about tomorrow, think about tomorrow. You think about today. But you write in that statement, you wrote about outside conditions, people, or circumstances that determine or actually get in the way of our happiness. Can you give me some ideas what you mean by outside conditions?
Oh my gosh! Oh, this is like we could do 3 shows on this. But what it means is that nothing else that's going on around you should determine how you feel. Okay, so that's a decision that you get to make. So conditions, so whatever is going on with politics or the media or anything like that, those conditions don't get to decide how you feel. Now, you may have an opinion about that, but how you allow that to affect you and what it does.
And that's a very key word, allow, isn't it?
Yes. If I can get a little woo-woo. So we're all energy beings, right? And so
right.
There's a lot of noise around us, a lot of influences around us. And we can choose to take them in, or we can choose to just move them through, right? And not let them come in and affect us. And so this is what I learned. There were so many outside conditions that were weighing me down. And so if we're all energy and you're taking that in, you're leaking your energy. And it takes away your power. So you don't have to engage in the conversation if you're for our president or not for our president, if you don't want to. You don't have to let the limiting beliefs of growing up with saying, some people are, rich people are greedy, or, you can't do that, or, I'm too busy, or life is hard, or any of that. Those are all limiting beliefs. That's all just programming that got imprinted in you. And people, and so if you, Charlie, go home and your wife's in a bad mood, you don't have to let that affect you. I'm just making it very simple, but I'm just saying you're always in control and in the power of how you are choosing to feel, to live, to respond, to all of it. So how to move forward with that. So
how does one get to that place though, Diane? If you go home and my wife is upset, and how do I get to the place where I am not bothered by that is not some condition that really gets to me?
I'll tell you what worked for me, and then maybe that will help, and then maybe it'll help the audience that's listening as well. But for me, what I said, when I had my moment and I made that declaration and I really started to fall in love with me, accepting myself unconditionally, what I call perfectly imperfect, and a work of art and a work in progress, that each and every day I get fresh and new, so I don't have to carry around guilt, pain, shame, anything from my past. I can forgive myself, make what I feel is right in the situation, and then be in a place of empowerment for how I want to move forward with it. And it started with processes. Like I said, I started the meditation practice, and that really got me in touch with what I want, how I want to feel in each day. And it took me from a reactionary person to a responsive person. So if you come home and your wife is in a bad mood, here's the key. There's a process in my book. It's the EED process. It's emotional energy diffuser. And it broken down, it's very simple. It's breathe, think, praise. So if that's how she's reacting, if you stop and take a breath, give yourself that moment, that pause to just connect with you, and then you think to yourself, this has nothing to do with me. Because it doesn't. It's not about you. It's about what's going on with her. It's where her vibration and her frequency and her mood and feelings are right then and there, right? So it has nothing to do with me. And praise is, you look at her with love in your heart and just say, she's doing the best she can from where she is today.
Right.
This is just all she has. This
Right.
is her best. And that's okay. And let me tell you, your dynamic in your relationship will change so much just by that 3-step process.
Because
so
you're not going to
powerful.
argue about it or have dissension
No.
over it and trying to correct her rather than just
No.
saying that's who you are today and I accept that and I will let you be as you are today.
Right, and you don't need to fix it, and you can just say, I can see this is upsetting you, or you're upset, you're angry, or whatever it is. Can I help and support you in any way? And if not, just let me know what you do need, and I'll respect your space. Boom, done, simple. I mean, how respectful. You've honored her and how she's feeling with kindness and compassion and respect. You didn't take it personally. You didn't take it in. It has not affected you. That is power. That's intentional living. So, and that goes with any and every situation, with your boss, with your kids, with friends. If you step back and just do that 3-step process, it's going to change your life.
It continually comes back to something you said way in the beginning of the podcast, and that when you were in the I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, that I'm a strong advocate of forgiveness and giving yourself a break. Also, what is essential in there, and that you talked about, is it's really very difficult to move on with a satisfied, gratifying life unless you do love yourself, unless you do have some form of love for yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, that means you're listening to these external voices. And you're listening to the voices of your past, could be your parents, could have been schoolmates, who knows what it could have been, and then your bosses, whatever. There's we have a number of negative voices that we hear, and if we internalize those without loving ourselves, then we have a difficult time making the most of our day and making the most of our relationships. It damages our relationships so much because it becomes all about me. And I can love myself without it being all about me. It can be about other people, that I love myself, and it makes me a servant, because that's what I want to do, is I want to serve other people, and as I do that, it creates even greater love for myself. So I think that's what you said early on really is a strong element in all of this. Would you agree?
I would agree, yes. I call it being selfish in a really good way. And that's really honoring you. And when you do honor yourself, you are able to give so much more to the world. It's extraordinary. It really is. So yes, that is definitely part of it. And yes, in the book I write about it, I talk about what intentional living is, and forgiveness is, I think it's the next chapter, but forgiveness is so freeing, and forgiveness of self is critical. It's step number 1 and 3, and it's only 3 steps. You've got to be able to forgive yourself and let that go, because when you do that, then you can really forgive others, accept them just as they are, their perfect imperfection, a work of art, a work in progress, and it eliminates the need for anyone to be any different than they are.
Yeah.
And when you think about all the anger in the world, all the frustration, where it's coming from is this need for power, but it's the wrong kind of power, and it's where within themselves they're not loving themselves. They're carrying around wounds, and they're pushing it out in other ways because the pain is lodged so deep in them. They have no connection to that. They don't understand their power turned around the other way to really come from a place of unconditional love. I'm telling you, Charlie, mark my words in this show right now, that I truly believe that the only way to world peace is through self-love, unconditional self-love, because that's the only way we're going to be able to live in a world where we accept other people unconditionally and love them just as they are.
Yeah, and that is without expectations of the other people,
yes.
without
yes.
them playing by my rules.
Right.
And that's what so often forgiveness, I find forgiveness is that I'm forgiving myself. Well, not any longer, but there was a time I was forgiving myself for what other people were accusing me of. And it wasn't even me accusing myself of something or me feeling guilty about something, but that somebody else put that guilt on me, and I'm forgiving myself, and I really don't even, after, you've done it for a number of years, you really don't even need to forgive yourself because you haven't done anything against your value system. You've lived according to your own value system, and that takes time. Now, we're running close to the end of time, but I do have a. Oh, this could be a whole podcast question. I got my producer shaking his head, saying, "Charlie, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." But it is so important, Diane, and that is. I come across so many people, as do you, who are in search of a purpose and a passion in their life. What is my purpose? What can I be passionate about? And every time I'm asked that question, I find myself coming up with the same standard answers, but to be truthful, at 70 years old, I am just finally landing on what I think my purpose in life is. And it's been consistent throughout my life, but I haven't seen it. I think passion and purpose are an evolving process that grows as I grow. Do you resonate with that at all? That purpose and passion are evolving?
Well, I'm going to say it differently. I like that for you. For me, what it means is passion and purpose can be defined very simply. Whatever brings meaning to your life. If it brings meaning to your life, you're on your purpose. It's providing passion. So if you think about, things that bring meaning to your life. So for me, I thought, is my purpose that I'm going to touch the lives of 1 billion people? Well, that's my mission statement, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is I'm meant to make people feel good. That's what I discovered. I kept hearing it over and over. People would say, I just feel so good when I'm around you.
You want to hear, let me interrupt. You want to hear something funny? You know what my purpose is?
What?
To help people feel better about themselves.
So if you seek the list of things that bring meaning to your life, you'll find some commonalities, and you'll be able to say something like that. My purpose is to be, my purpose is to be the best, most loving mom I can be. My purpose is to, just bring joy to those around me. It's so simple, and it gets people, I know it's a catchphrase, we're all about passion and purpose. But the truth is, my belief is, it's whatever brings meaning to your life.
And how do you discover that? Because I will say that to people, and they say, I don't know what brings meaning to my life.
Well, that is a whole other show on how to do that. But what I would say is you need to be asking, here's the key. You need to be asking yourself way more questions, and you need to be asking yourself the right questions, because you can't say, why am I not happy? Or, why can't I find, a partner? Or, those kinds of questions do not serve you. You need to be asking yourself, what would my life look like and feel like if I had the things that I want? And what are those things? Like, you got to think about it. You hear people say, well, I want to win the lottery. Oh, all right, well, why do you want to win the lottery? Oh, well, I would have peace of mind and freedom. That is what they ultimately want. Okay, but what does that look like on a deeper level? What does peace of mind and freedom look like to you? So, do you travel all over the world? Do you take up golf? Do you study things? Do you take up a musical instrument? Are you a blogger? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to be a speaker? What is that? This is the thing. People suffer from lack of specificity. The universe doesn't understand ambiguity. You've got to get specific about what you want in order for it to come into your life, in order to attract it into your life. So ask yourself those questions. And by asking yourself those questions, you'll be able to discover what brings meaning to your life.
I like that. I like the specificity. I think it's the old peeling back the onion. When you ask a question, ask why, what will get served by attaining whatever I am trying to attain, because there's always something deeper and always something more. I think maybe that was my idea in evolution, is that meaning in life, there is a grand meaning in life, but we find meaning as we go through life in its various stages. There are stages where there are certain things that are meaningful, like raising my son was the most meaningful thing in the world for me, but he's 27 years old, and I am now a consultant friend. I'm not a parent raising him. And so those things, they grow with age and with time. There's a heart. I'm sure I can connect the dots on that. Like we talked about earlier, Steve Jobs said you can always connect the dots, you can only connect them afterward. You can't connect them first. And that's all about connecting the dots. Diane Forster, I want to thank you for all your invaluable inspiration and your tactical suggestions for reinventing a life you want that suits your natural proclivities. It's been a blast. I'd like to encourage our listeners to visit your website at dianeforster.com for life suggestions and even personal coaching, and you are going to give me some links that I can put on the show notes that will get people to you and get more information from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a free gift. I have a free chapter of my book, so I'll make sure to get you all that information. It'll be in your comment section. So, please follow me. Lots of free resources out there for people.
Okay, hang on just a minute after the show ends. I want to chat with you to make sure I get all of those things. But before I do that, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie, and be sure to check us out at our website, thenextchapter.life. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.